Hi all and welcome back to Maltbox, the non-chill filtered whiskey blog. I'm Andy and I'm back here today with another whiskey review. And the whiskey that I have for you today is really interesting. I always say that, I appreciate that. However, to me, whiskey is a very interesting subject and I'm assuming it is to you, that's why you're here. If you stumbled across this, trust me, whiskey is pretty interesting. Now this is a whiskey that's been produced by an English distillery. However, it is not made with English whiskey. It's made by the guys at Bimber, and it's this Apogee. Now, first things first, you'd be forgiven that if you saw this on a shelf without knowing who produced it, that it would be a Japanese whiskey. It's got that kind of vibe going on. Now, first things first, this sample was provided for me by Bimber. Now, I say sample, they very kindly sent a full bottle, unbeknownst to me. So what I would like to point out is that just because that this sample has been provided does not mean that it will be getting a favourable review as a result. Now, I take it very seriously, this kind of thing, because I appreciate how much this costs in real life. I didn't ask for this, it came as a token of appreciation, I guess, of previous support of their wares. Lovely guys down there as well, really passionate. And going on to great things in Scotland themselves with Dunfale Distillery, which they're starting now. It's going to be really interesting. Now back to this, Apogee, named after a bit of a combination of something around basically the furthest point in Earth's orbit that you can get from Earth's core without going... I can't remember, I'm no scientist. Also, it was an old games company as well, which is pretty cool. The bottle itself, very fetching. As you can see, very kind of aesthetically pleasing. Now, apparently the divots here, it's been designed to kind of emanate Bimber's stills that they have at the distillery. Ironically, this whiskey didn't come from those stills, however. Now this has been bottled at 46.3%, it is natural colour, it is non-chill filtered. And what this actually is a blended malt Scotch whiskey in any other name. So it's been produced using malt whiskies from different distilleries in Scotland that have been blended together with a minimum age of 12 years. So the youngest whiskey in this is 12 years old and it is effectively Scotch. However, it cannot be called Scotch. It's been called pure malt. You couldn't call a Scottish whiskey pure malt. However, in England, there aren't any rules around this at the minute. There's no English Whisky Association like there is the Scotch Whisky Association that set all these restrictions and covenants and caveats around what you can and can't say. That's probably going to change given the fact that so many distilleries have sprung up. It needs to be regulated in some way, I guess. So, I don't know what... Oh, can we just... Yes. I don't know what distilleries this has come from. I obviously was cheeky and asked. I was like, Matt, I know I'm being cheeky, but can you tell what distillery is? And he says, Andy, I know you're being cheeky, and no, I can't, which is fair play. Don't ask, you don't get. So this has basically been produced by the guys at Bimber using Scotch whiskies. Again, it's called pure malt, so it's Apogee pure malt whiskey, as you can see there. You couldn't say that in Scotland. The SWA have regulations basically saying, no, it's a blended malt. They even stopped vatted malt being used a few years ago. And we're like, no, it's got to be called blended malt. You can't say vatted malt. You can't say pure malt. Pure malt is quite a... Nowadays, it's kind of something, again, that you can see in the Japanese whiskey industry. So the fact that they're kind of doing this is pretty cool and pretty cheeky as well. It's like, yeah, you know, I can do what I want. Part of the story around this that is also interesting is that this was initially mature. Well, basically the whiskies that went into this, I think were all ex-bourbon from memory. But what they've gone and done is they've actually then transferred the whiskey that they've put together into ex-Bimber casks. Now, the Bimber casks themselves, I think, were ex-bourbon casks. But what they've then done is put this Scotch whiskey that they've put together in these English whiskey casks, ex-bourbon casks, to kind of impart their own whiskey's influence on it. It's a bit of a role reversal. So you've got ex-bourbon barrels being used in both English and Scotch whiskey, imparting that influence. But then, so this barrel, or these barrels, should I say, that the original liquid went into, whilst they were in Scotland, came from bourbon casks that were then emptied by Bimber, blended together, and then put into Bimber casks that are also ex-bourbon casks. So it's quite a unique, albeit confusing, maturation process. Effectively, it's just ex-Bimber casks is what they've kind of self-styled it as, which I guess they can. So natural colour, kind of a mid-range gold there, somewhere on the Farrell and Ball scale of misty morning sunrise or something like that. Now, we've got some legs already falling down the glass at a decent pace. On the nose, let's see what this has got. Now again, before I get started, this isn't rehearsed. This is just clicking record and just cracking on. I don't write tasting notes down. There's nothing here because I can't. Well, A, I can't be bothered, and also it's just so untidy. This is very, very sweet initially. Now, that's not a bad thing. I think you can tell that it's Scotch whisky. However, there is something else to it. If you've tried any of Bimber's whiskies, you will come across this very, very kind of spicy, nutty, kind of cola cubey, lead spirit. And there is a little bit of that straight off the bat, but it's very, very well intermingled, I'd probably say, with the core distillates. Now, again, I don't know what distilleries this has come from. So, all I know that I think it's Highland whiskey. Is it Highland Distilleries? Could be a couple of... I don't know if it's... I can't remember off the top of my head, to be honest, if it's a mix of Highland and Speyside, but... Toffee. There's some nuts in there. Vanilla. Brown sugar. Those cola cubes that I always bring up when I talk about Bimber, even though technically, again, this isn't Bimber. If you've ever toasted almonds in a pan and they're going slightly brown, that is probably the most accurate description I can make, particularly at the back of the nose. A bit of coconut as well. Really nice nose. On the palate. I always like making awkward eye contact. Wow. Oh. Ah. Oh. Mmm. Mmm. Wow, that goes on a ride. Speaking of London, that is like getting to a tube station, jumping over to the next platform that's on a different line, and you get on a different one, and then you get on a different one and a different one. So initially, sweetness is back, toffee is back, but then spice, and then black pepper, and then it becomes kind of savoury, and then those Bimber casks come back in again. And it is, you do get this like flash in a pan of the old Recharred bottling that I've thankfully got another bottle of. I don't know where to go next. It's not like, it is not like a blended malt that I've tried before. Don't get me wrong, casks can be used numerous times. You get first fill, second fill, third fill, and then, well, it just becomes refill. Sometimes it can be filled like, what, 4 or 5 times for unknown periods. However, the fact that this whiskey's been transferred into Bimber casks, that prior to that Bimber being matured in them, has only had bourbon, so they were brand new casks for the bourbon, so effectively first fill for the Bimber. So you've kind of got those two different styles intermingling already. And then the character that these Scotch whiskies have brought with them as well. It's a minefield. It is. It's just going here, there and everywhere, but in a good way. It's really, really engaging. And just going back to the nose, it's, yeah, still very spicy. Toffee. Good. Right. Coffee. Toffee. More of that brown sugar. got the nuttiness, fruit and nut bars, vanilla, kind of a date vibe going on, like medjool date, possibly plums or something as well. And then, right just as you're going into the finish, for me, that's when the Bimber cask itself really comes into its own, because it does carry a lot of Bimber flavour profile with it. And for me, and this is just me, again, it's all, you know, it's all each to their own kind of thing. Everyone's got their own tongue, your own nose, all incredibly subjective. My wife has got a much better palate and a nose than I have, and she picks out different things that I don't, and vice versa. But cola cubes, again, for me, are just there. Pink shrimp, foam sweets. This is really fun. This is fun. It is a fun whiskey. I could also, without picking it apart as well, I could easily see myself sitting back with a few glasses of this, just in a rocks glass, just enjoying it. Because it is a very enjoyable experience. I think this retails for around 55 to 60 quid. Lovely whiskey. It is. It's a lovely whiskey, guy. I'm being honest. It is a lovely whiskey. And it is very unique. It really is. The fact that we have English distilleries that can decant Scotch whiskey into their casks, that's pretty cool nowadays. That is pretty cool. I'm so glad to be living through this kind of time that we're in, of the English whiskey scene just flowering. It's just blooming, and I'm loving every minute of it. I think the good thing about this is that, yeah, alright, it's not Bimber in its truest form, in the sense that it's not actually Bimber spirit. However, the guys behind it are the same guys that make Bimber's whiskey. And this, I think there was something like 25,000 bottles of this. There's plenty of it around. It is going to stick around for a while. That's a good thing. A lot of Bimber's releases, I mean, I know their Bourbon Batch 3's kind of stuck around for a bit longer as well, because there's, you know, I think a little bit more of it than there was previous releases. However, on the whole, Bimber sells out like that. Particularly when you're looking at weird casks or exclusive country releases. I know they do sort of exclusive releases for different countries in Europe. This is an opportunity to kind of try something made by those guys that, yeah, again, isn't their distillate, but their craft and their knowledge and their love has kind of still gone into it. It's great. I really, really like it. It's very, very charming. Delicious as well. Honestly, really, really good. So, on that note, I'm going to box it off. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I'm on Instagram at maltbox, maltboxwhiskey.com. Thanks for watching. See you soon.